Yeah.
All right, so tell me how many years you've been in the video game industry.
Let's see. As of, I believe, November, I've been in the game industry for 15 years.
And what are some of your objectives that you've seen here in Houston area that's as the industry has grown or not grown?
Wow. I'm going to have to stick with not grown. I'll start there. So naturally, Houston is an oil and gas industry. And naturally, because of the way that the shift has gone with the oil industry truncating, what I've seen is there's no R&D in the oil and gas industry to see what a company can do to sustain themselves outside oil and gas. I know that sounds kind of funny, but they've not really ever talked about doing anything for the mobile market. They've not done anything for mobile games. They haven't done anything for education. Even when I was being interviewed at the Art Institute of Houston, Dr. Eaton had voiced a complaint that all these oil and gas companies want students to be educated in the oil and gas industry. You know, they don't know what a manifold is. They don't know what subsea is. They have no idea, just even something that light in terminology versus like what is fracking, what is onshore. Real basic terms, the school has no idea what that is. And so the complaint that Dr. Eaton had expressed is he was wanting to see somebody from the oil and gas industry come over and educate the students just on basic terminology. What does the oil and gas industry want to see? They don't have answers. So what ends up happening is you have this whole generation of adults that are working in oil and gas, and they're not teaching anything in the lower generation, and at least on the collegiate level. And the artists, this whole thing is going to die out in 20 years. Like it's a very, very weird kind of, I don't want to call it elitism, because I don't think that that's what that is. It's just that there's just misinformation. So with that said, you have all these other people that are out of jobs, right? So in the gaming industry, so what do we do from there? Well, we're supposedly in the top 5, but there's like 10 video game companies in Houston, if that. So where's the money coming in and where's it going out? I have a lot of talk about some local PAC community members of public advisory board committees. They'll sit down and they'll say, oh, we need to get these students educated in ZBrush, or we need to talk about how they can stop using 3D Max and just use Maya only. So everything in the discussion on these advisory board committees is on the job level. It's never monetization. How does a young person approach an investor? Where do we find investors? Why hasn't there been some kind of community of investors that go to the school and say, hi, we're investors. This is how you get in contact with us. So there's just this abrupt cash flow that just stops. So the school wants jobs, education wants jobs, but you can't give jobs with no money. So that's what I see. There's no growth in Houston. There's very little growth in Austin, and that's what I'm trying to help educate people and change.
Now, what would you see as something fundamental that you'd like to bring to the city of Houston in regards to building out the video game industry?
That's a good question. I think that what has to happen is there's no training ground, right? So you have all these people going to school, and they have no experience. And then you have this stark need for experienced people, right? So what hinders the experience level is the old system of education. What do I mean by that? Well, you know, the education system hasn't changed really since like what, the Industrial Revolution. So you have all of these people like, okay, we're gaming industry is like less than 45 years old, okay? So on a whole, when I was going to school, what you see is you have all of these teachers coming in from all of these other degrees that are sciences, and they're teaching guys like me what 3D is, and they have no idea what it is because the industry is that young. So I was being taught by people with master's degrees in graphics design, master's degree in fine arts. This technology is so infantile, right? So when I get out of school, all of the software that's being developed is now available for the next generation. So now I'm in direct competition with the people that are now going to school. So when they come out, their skill level in understanding technology is much higher than mine. So why? Because I didn't have YouTube when I went to college. Google just came out when I was going to college. We were still working on 56K modems. AOL was still going on. So, how does that change things? So we need to change the way the education system is. And the only way to do it is by getting professionals like myself, who's been in the industry for 15 years with actual experience. I've done over 45 television commercials. I've worked on over 25 video games. So I have the experience to teach the youth. But even I myself am stunted in being able to teach on a more effective level because I don't have a master's degree. Well, that goes back to the education system and saying, okay, what's more important, having the permission slip or having the education to actually functionally teach these students? And so when you sit down with the students and you say, hey, how do you feel about, my teaching ability for somebody else? It's like they see such a drastic change. It's not even on the same playing field because it's people who are doing this out of hobby versus doing it professionally. So what has to happen in the city is that we need education changed. We need a training ground. So you have this stark contrast of difference of all these companies that need seasoned employees. And what can't happen is that you have all these students with like technique, skill. I would just say skill because the technique has to develop over time, right? And it's like they either come out and then they immediately plummet. They have nowhere to train. So what I'm proposing is that we may need an apprenticeship program, right? I don't want to call it a union. I know that kind of scares people, but it's an apprenticeship program. We need somewhere that professionals can go in, be paid to teach other younger professionals how to do the job correctly. Because when you go to school, all you get is bare minimum education. You don't get any experience.
Now, going back to, in a very succinct way, with the issue of what the city could do beyond education, because a lot of that falls outside the city realm, outside of prompting a specific hub. Is there anything specifically, because you mentioned funding, you mentioned the need for bringing in more studios here, is there something specific to the city you'd like to see happen?
Something specific to the city. Probably just a place where the community can come and rest. I know it kind of sounds funny, but when you build a basketball court in a community, you're encouraging young people to go out and play basketball. You build a baseball field, right? Well, we don't have any kind of arena to operate in, not just making the games, but playing the games that we're making, right? So, esports, there's a whole rise in esports that's happening. That's a big deal that the city should definitely take a look at and be aware of. And know that there's a way to take gaming, which adults and parents are really afraid of because it's such a huge moneymaker, and benefits society. So what do I mean by that? So if you have a game, you can take a percentage of those assets and give it to widows, give it to orphans, give it to United States veterans who the VA doesn't help out as well as we would like. You can give it to cancer patients. I lost my friend to cancer last year. And one of the games that I have, I want to take percentages of that and give it to his family and give it to other families that are suffering in that area. It's expensive to keep your family member in the hospital, but also the poor. So when you take these 5 avenues into consideration, there's a lot that the gaming community can offer, not just keep the profits and then do nothing with the leftover money. So that's what I'd like to see, is some kind of avenue where we can have that kind of outlet to benefit society.